welcome to this video series on SQL, structured query language, the backbone of modern data management. Whether you're just starting out or looking to strengthen your database skills, this series is designed just for you. Have you ever wondered how search engines retrieve data instantly or how e-commerce websites store your cart items? The answer lies in SQL, the language that communicates with databases to store, retrieve, and manage data efficiently. In this series, we'll cover everything from the basics of creating tables and retrieving data to more advanced topics like transactions and performance optimization. Plus, I'll share real-world examples to help you connect the dots. So, get ready to master SQL step by step. By the end of this series, you'll have the confidence to work with any relational database like a pro. Stay tuned, and let's dive into the world of databases together.
Good morning, students. So welcome to the journey to the world of SQL, a structured query language. In this video, we are going to take our very first steps in understanding SQL and how it helps us to work with databases. So before even I start, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever wondered how websites stores user information like login details or shopping cart items, or how businesses analyze large amounts of data to make some decisions? The answer lies in SQL, which is the universal language for the databases. So in today's session, we will start from the scratch and we will explore what SQL is and why it is so important. And we will also understand the kinds of tasks that you can perform with it, like creating a table, updating a table, inserting into a tables, deleting data from the tables, and obviously the most important task, retrieving the data from the tables. By the end of this video session, you will have a clear idea of what SQL is all about and why learning it is an essential skill for anyone working in computer science, data science, or even solving up day-to-day problems. Okay, so let's start. So SQL is a structured query language, and it has evolved over the time. So it has number of versions. So there is a version ANSI SQL, just like NCC we have ANSI SQL. Then we have some standard versions like SQL or SQL 92. This is also known as SQL 2, and we have then SQL 99, which is also known as SQL 3. So it is the standard language for interacting with the relational databases. So as I said, it's a standard language, or you can call it, it's a universal language, and it interacts with the relational databases. And mainly it is used to define, manipulate, retrieve, and even control the data efficiently. So it can be used to create the tables or the structure of the tables. It can be used to manipulate the data inside the tables, and the most important task is the data retrieval. So mainly it is used for the data retrieval in an efficient way. So why SQL is important? Basically, it manages query data stored in a relational databases. It manages and query the data stored in a relational databases, and it performs a complex operation using simple commands. So unlike other languages which uses loops, which uses different programming style or different programming paradigm, this is solely for the database retrieval. So instead of writing a complex programs, procedural programs, it uses a simple commands and simple queries for performing these tasks. And it is very essential for database driven applications like websites, banking systems, all the a banking application and the financial application, they have a backend in RDBMS only. And obviously it also I mean there the data analysis part. So it can be used as a data analysis tool. Then there are some key features. One of the key feature is it is universal. Universal here is it is supported by most of the relational database systems. So in a market, okay, so different database systems are there, especially the relational database systems are there. So in all the relational database systems, you will find SQL as a common and the universal language. It is declarative. So what is the meaning of declarative here? It focuses on what to do. It focuses on what to do rather than how to do. So it's very, a simplistic approach, and it is very easy approach. So with this, a simple syntax, you can retrieve the data in an efficient way. It is also considered as a very powerful because it supports data manipulation, and it also can design the schema, and it can also access the control uh, uh, mechanism. And then there are some application which are listed here. Obviously the number one is web development. So any web application on the back end, most of the time you will find the RDBMS, and RDBMS is obviously the information retrieval from the RDBMS is through SQL. So a lot of applications are there. And then obviously you will find e-commerce application. Then the huge market is in the financial and the banking application, and it is used in data analytics and reporting also. There are three parts of a SQL that we need to understand. There are three parts. Number one is uh, DDL. So DDL stands for what? Data definition language. There are three parts in SQL. One is called the DDL that we need to understand. So in this data definition language, actually, we are dealing with the structure of a table. So how the structure can be created, structure, not about the data, structure of a table. So how the structure of a table is created, then how the structure is modified, right? This structure, when I'm saying a structure and when I'm saying a schema, I'm talking about the table itself. I'm not talking about the table with data, and I'm not talking about the data. I'm talking about the structure, and I'm talking about the raw, the schema. So in this data definition language, you can create the table, structure of a table. You can change, or you can modify, or you can alter the table structure. Then you can delete also, and even you can delete the table itself. So the data definition language, it's talk about the basics. It talks about the schema. It talks about the fundamentals of a table. So you can create a table, and then you can modify a table, and then you can delete some of the columns, and then even you can delete the table itself. That we need to understand. And then we have something called data manipulation language. So what is a data manipulation language? Here, in which we will only manipulate the data which is inside the table. We have to see one by one all of these things. So here we are not dealing with the structure, rather we are dealing with the data which is inside the table. So if you have a data, obviously you can insert the data in a table, then you can update the data inside the table, and then you can retrieve the data from the table, and even you can delete the data inside the table, not the structure of a table. Then we have the third one is called data control language. So data control language actually gives some kind of a permission. So it can grant some permission, and it can revoke some permission. First, we will understand these two, starting from the data definition language. We'll see the commands, and then we will go to the data control language. So okay, so the first part of SQL is what? A data definition language, that is called DDL. DDL, right? So there are different commands, and as I said again and again, it is for creating the structure of a table, or it is for creating the schema. And what is the meaning of a structure? It's just a raw structure, right? So with this command create, you can create the structure of a table. This is the structure without a data. Now with this language there is something called alter command, and this alter command can be used to modify the existing database tables or existing database objects. So you have created, let's say, a table with the column names A, B, and C, and then you have realized that another column name D should be there. So later on you can add column D also. That is a modification or the alteration of the table. And then if you want, in between you can delete. Later on you realize that this B is no more required, so you can delete this B table also. So that is again a modification. Even you can change the data type of this column B also. And then at last, if you want, then you can delete the entire table if you want. So that is called a drop. So all of these commands, create, alter, and drop, basically works on the structure and the schema of a table. So many times I have said structure and a schema. Now we can move to the data manipulation language. What is a data manipulation language? You have already a structure, right? You have already the structure of a table inside your database. So now what you can do actually in this structure, you can insert a data. So like A, B, C, and D, 4 columns are there. So you can insert the data inside this table. This is first thing. Then you can update the data. Every in data manipulation language, everything is a data. So you can update the data also. So A1, B1, C1, D1, you can do updation also. Then you can delete the data also. So you can insert and then you can update and then you can delete the data also. And most importantly, you can retrieve the data according to your requirement. So you can retrieve a particular data or a selective data, right? So A1, B1 you can select, B1, C1 you can select, A1, B1, C1, D1 entirely you can select. So everything is possible in this data manipulation language. Then the third one is data control language. As I said, students, sometimes we need to give some kind of a permissions. For example, if accounts are created in a database or in some a database application, or let's say logins are created in some database applications, so anyone cannot create those tables. So we have to give some kind of a permission. So that is called a grant. So there is a command like grant. We will see these commands later on also, but right now you can just note it down. There are 2 commands in data control language. One is called grant, and then after even giving the permission, you can revoke those permissions or you can revoke those privileges, right? So for example, grant select on table to the user name. So this will give a select grant to the user, to this user on this particular table, right? And then you can revoke some of the grant or some of the permissions that you have already given. So now we will understand how the table looks like and some of the terminologies which are used in a structured query language. So table, it's simple. The architecture is self-explanatory. The architecture is pretty simple, so every person can understand simply. It relates to the real life also, so things are easy in SQL. They are not complex. So the very first thing is the table itself. So students, you have something called a database, right? Database. In this database is what kind of a database? RDBMS, so relational database management system. So to access this database, a language is there which is called SQL. Now inside this database, the one of the object is, there are different kinds of objects. So one of the object obviously is called a table. It's called a table. So how does a table looks like, and how does it behaves in a database, and what are the terminologies which is associated with tables? Let's try to understand. The first thing is the table name itself. So here you see a one table, and its name is what? The name of a table, its name is what? Employee. Name of a table, you note it down. Okay, don't confuse with the column name. Then the table has something called columns. So how many columns are there? Three columns are there, and obviously all the columns are having different names. So the first column name is name, which is the name of the employee. The second column name is employee ID. Then the third column name is what? Department name. This is called a column name, and they are also known as attributes. So this is a table name, and these are called attributes. Then you see here something called a row. Okay, and this row is also known as what? Tuple. So row and the tuples are one and the same thing. Basically, rows are in SQL, and because the SQL is built on top of relational models. So tuple is a terminology from the relational model. So both are valid in this SQL. So tuples are what? It's just a one row or a one entry in a table. Then there is something called, a cell or a one data, and this thing is called atomic. Further, it cannot be divided. So 2241 is atomic value, and it cannot be divided further. So let me say it once again. This thing is called what? A table, and table has something called columns or the attribute, column names or the attributes. So this is one column that you can see name or employee ID is the second column, or the department name is the third column, right? And then you have something called tuples or the rows, which is one entry in the table, which represents a one instance, or which represents a one entry in the table. Then students, uh, I said the word schema also. So we need to understand the word schema also. Schema is just a table name and its attributes. It's just like, a heading of a table. So you can write it heading also. So schema is nothing but a heading. And then how can you write a schema? It's again a universal, format. You write the table name, and within a bracket, you write the column names or the attribute names. So the previous table, how many columns it has, or how many attribute it has? So it has three: 1, 2, and 3. So schema you write like this, and table with data you write like this. Then one important thing you need to understand, which is a key. So key is an attribute whose values are unique in all the rows. And in schema, we underline the key. So whenever you see the underline, you will exactly think about what a key. So when a key, I say, it means unique values, and it is actually underlined in the schema. And in table, how can you identify? You can identify by all the unique values. So here you see 3415, 2241, 3401, 2202, and 1123. So all the values, students, they are what? Different, and all the values are unique. So that's why this employee ID is a key in this table. So we have understood a lot of terminologies. We have understood attributes, we have understood table itself, and we have understood tuple or rows. Now we have understood the key part also. Then how can we define a tuple? It's just a one record, or in other words, you can say it's a one instance. It's a one instance, or in other words, you can say it's one object. For example, here, this Harry is one object inside this. That means he's one employee. Then George is another employee. Then Tim is another employee. Then Sally is another employee. So these are the entities. They are the instances. Or in database, we call it a one record. A record, that means a one record. Restrictions: all the attributes are of atomic type. So as I said, students, the cells here you see a cells. So these cells we cannot divide further. Okay, so 2241 cannot be divided into two parts, and the cell also, or the name uh, can also not be divided, right? Then department name can also not be divided. So all of these individual cells, they are atomic in nature. Then a table, in other words, or from the others, uh, other understanding, what you can think of, a table is a set of what? A tuples. It's like a list. It's like a list, right? But it is unordered. So list has generally some order, but this is unordered. So there is no first, there is no next, and there is no last. Okay, so all of the entries or all of the records have the equal, you can say, a privilege. So there is no first, there is no next, and there is no last in a table. It's a uh, uh, now next thing is, what do we see here is data, definition, language, commands, actually how they work in SQL. So we would see practically how can we write or how can we create the table, how can we write the command to create the table, how can we write the command for altering the table, and even we can see how can we even delete the table structure, that is a drop table. So you please note it down somewhere. There are mainly three commands. There is another command called truncate also, but we would see only three right now. First is the creation of the table. Second is, once the table is created, so it's not like fixed, so in some situation or in rare situation you can even alter the table. And then if table is not required anymore, so you can drop the table also. So here we come for the creation of the table. But before we create the table, actually we need to understand some of the data types in SQL. So the list is very long for the data type in SQL. There are a lot of data types in SQL, but to understand, we can divide it into three parts. One is called a character data type, one is called a number data type, and others we can write it like money and date time. So for character students, we have something called CHAR, and in bracket you write the length of the character, and then something called varchar also, right? So there are three basically: char, varchar, and you have an varchar also. So the difference we will understand slowly once we understand the creation of a table and once we understand the structure of a table. But these three data types are used for what? The characters, right? Then there are one actually text is also there, so you can note it down, text also. So we'll understand the basic differences among these character data types. Then for numbers, we have something called integer, we have something called big integer, we have a small integer, and then we have something called decimal also, right? So a lot of data types are there for as per the requirements, so you can use any data type. Then there is something called money also, and then there is something called date time also. Then students, we will not go and we will not understand each and every data type because it will take too much time, and it will be cumbersome also, and sometimes it will become boring also. So here we will understand only 5 data types which are very useful and which are very important. So one is called integer. And remember, these data types we are learning from MySQL perspective. Okay, so only this one, there is a difference between Oracle and MySQL. Few differences are there, very minute differences are there. So I'm just taking these data types from MySQL perspective, which is an open source database, and we are going to run our queries in MySQL only. So it's a standard integer data type used to store whole numbers, from your C language and from your C++ language, and even a Java. What is the meaning of integer? Same thing. So for example, if you are creating product ID or you are creating an employee ID, right? We'll create an employee ID. So you can take it as what? Integer. This is, you can take it as an integer. So it's very simple. Like all the other languages, all the other procedural languages, you can use this integer data type. Then you have second thing is called varchar. Okay, so first we would be using this integer, and the second one we would be using what? Varchar. So varchar is what, a student? It's a variable length string type. The maximum length is defined by what? N. Right, so it's a string kind of a data type, and here n is defining the length of the string, you can understand. So where is the application? Obviously, if you're using an address, or if you're using a customer name, employee name, or a student name, so you would take what? Variable character. Then the third one is we would be using a date, because all are different, and we would be using only one standard data type for that. So another is called what? A date data type. So a date data type, that stores a date values, and you need to understand only one thing: the format of the date data type in MySQL. So it is what it is, four you can say a character or a digit, you can say, is for the year. So the format is year, month, and the date. Generally in India, what we write is date, month, and year. So here the format is exactly reverse. So first we will write the year, and then we write the month, and then we will write the date also. And the fourth data type that we are going to see is called decimal. Decimal. So it's a fixed point number that allows a precise storage of exact numeric values. And how you can define this? This is the total length, and this is after decimal how many points would be there. So for example, if you are defining salary, which is decimal 10 comma 2, so how it will look like: you would have 8 digits, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then dot. Okay, and after dot how many digits would be there? 2 digits would be there. So 1 2 you can write it. And if you want, then the total would be what? Total would be 10, right? So total are 10, and after 8 how many digits are there? Or after dot how many digits are there, or after decimal how many digits are there? 2 digits would be there. So that's the meaning of decimal. One last we would see, student, is what? A text. Okay, so text data type for storing a large strings up to what? 65535 characters, right? So when you are writing description of something, especially the product description or any other description, so here you are going to use something called a text. So I hope with these 5 data types: integer, varchar, date, and decimal, and text, we will cover most of the data types, and we can start our programming. So next, we have some tables, and we are going to create on our MySQL. So first table is what, students? First table that we are going to create is student. So what is the syntax? The syntax is for creating any table in MySQL. Syntax is you have to use this command called create. We have seen this command create, and then you have to write the keyword table. So table is a keyword. Then you have to give a table name. I'm not writing the syntax directly, I'm writing the code for creating a students table. So this is the name of a table, right? The students is a name of table. And how many columns are there in this table? The first column is student ID. So student ID is the name of the column, the name of the first column in the table is student. And what is the type for it? The type is what? Integer. We have just studied the integer data type. Then the second one is the second column is the first name, and here we are taking a varchar. So maximum how many characters can be there in the first name? 50. Then the last name is also there, so how many characters can be there in the last name? This is the third column. 50 are there. Then the age is we are taking as integer, and the enrollment date we are taking as a date. So this is a table with name, students, and how many columns are there? So the name of the table is what? The students, right? The students. Then the first column is ID. You can write the whole column name, and then this is the first name, then this is the last name, then this is age, and here it is what? Enrollment date. So you can write a enrollment date also. Then a student, after even creating a table, what you can do is you can even modify the table structure. We have created just the structure of a table. We have just created the structure of a table, so we can even modify the structure of a table. So what modification can be done? If you want, even after the creation of a table, you can add one more column. Okay, or you can delete some of the existing column also. So you can delete this existing column, and then you can even delete the entire student table also. So you can even delete the entire student table also. So three things are possible. First is the creation, second one is the alteration, and third one is the the dropping or the deletion of the table structure. Here we see first alteration type. And the first alteration type is what we are modifying the existing table. So first thing what we will do is we will add a email field. You have just seen that there is no email field. So here you can write an email field also. Then how will you write in a code form? So just this command you have to use, alter table. This alter is a keyword, it's a command, table is an object, and then students is the table name. And then you have to write this keyword add. Add is for the column. What you are adding to the table, you are adding email, right? And then the data type of the table also you are adding here, which is varchar 100 you are taking right here. So with this, actually your table is going to be modified, and it will contain one more, you can say, a column, which is email. I'll show you the demonstration also for this. Then second alteration is you can even modify the data type inside the column, inside the column. So earlier the age was what? Integer. If you can remember, we have used the age as an integer, but later on we have realized that the age can be in decimal also, right? So it uh, obviously the age is not a whole number always, it's a decimal number always. So later on we realize that the age should be decimal, so we can convert it into decimal form also. This is called alteration of the data type for the existing column. So we are not actually adding or deleting a column, rather we are modifying the column. Which column? Age column we are modifying. So this simple command you have to run. Then after that you realize that this enrollment date is not required. So there is somewhere date is there, enrollment date is there, and later on you realize that this date is not required, so you can delete this date also, right? So these are the three main commands of data definition language. And this data definition language, obviously the data type will come okay students, so here are we in MySQL panel, and I'm using XAMPP server, and there are some reasons for using the XAMPP server. You can use any of the MySQL workbench or any studio you like. So all are using actually behind the scene or as a backend MySQL as a database. So here we are using just the web interface, and we are using from the XAMPP server. So we are in this MySQL database, and we are trying to create one table structure. You can see this table structure. The table name is what? Students. We have seen that, and four different data types we are using here. One is integer. Only three we are using here. Later on we will do some modification also. Varchar and the date. Okay, how many columns are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 columns are there. So in this MySQL database, I'm inside this MySQL database. You can verify from here also. I'm in using this database, right? So if I execute this query, this is the structure of creating the table. So if I execute this query, so one table should be created. So let me quickly run this query and show you the output. So this table has been created, and where you can see the table is created, first of all, here you can also see that the query is executed with positive results. So the student table is created, and here as a graphical user interface, that's why I was using this XAMPP server and I was using this web interface. So graphically also we can see that. So students table is created. If you click on this student table, you would see columns, and you would see a different columns also. So the first one is age, then the enrollment date, first name, last name, and student ID. So all of these 5 columns that we have created, you can see here. So congratulations, you have executed the first query and your table has been created inside this SQL, right? So what was the second query? Next we realized that one column we have already missed. So how can we add that column? How can we add that column? So what is the syntax for adding any column to the existing table? The syntax we have already seen that it's alter table students. Okay, so what we are altering here, we are altering this student table, and what we are doing here, we are adding email as a a column, extra column. And what is the data type for this? The data type is varchar only. So when you run this command, here you can see that there is no email column. All of you can see that there is no email column here. So if you run this command, so one column should be added here, and that column would be what? Email. So quickly we run this command, and here now you can see that some email field has been attached, or some email column is attached uh, to the student table. Now what else we can do? We can change the data type of age. Okay, right now it is an integer, and we know that the age is most of the time is not an integer. Basically it's a decimal. So when you run this query, the query we have already seen. So when you run this query, you go to SQL part, and here instead of this, what you can write it here: alter table students modify column. Modify column. Which column? We have to modify age column. And earlier it was integer, so no need to write, it will override on that. Now instead of an integer, what you can write here is decimal. And what is the meaning of 4 2? So maximum length of this decimal would be 4, and after decimal there would be 2. So before decimal also 2, and after decimal also 2. This is the a different kind of a intuition used by the SQL. So you need to understand this, the intuition of what? A decimal. Now if I execute this query one last time, you can see that age is integer. After executing this query, age should be what? Decimal. Age should become what? Decimal. So now you executed this, and here you can see that the data type of age is become the decimal. And what was the last query? We can drop some of the columns also. So we realized that this column is not required. Which column is not required? We have seen that enrollment date. Let's say we are just deleting this enrollment date. So what we need to write it? We need to write it alter table students drop column enrollment date. Once you execute this query, here you can see that in this table, enrollment date is there. This is the enrollment date. Now if you execute this query, what will happen? First it will ask, because deleting or dropping anything, it can be a dangerous, whether it is accidentally or not. So just it is taking a confirmation. That's why again it's good. The web interface is good. It is taking a confirmation. Do you want to execute the alter table students drop column enrollment date? Yes, we want that. So if I drop this here, you can see that the enrollment date is gone. Now it is no more in the student table. So we have executed a lot of commands. We have created the table, then we have altered the table in all the possible ways. Now if you want, let's say after some time you realize that the student table itself is no more useful, and we have to create from the scratch a new student table or something else. So you can even drop this student table. So for that, which command is there? You know that for that, this command drop command is there, and this is again a very dangerous command. All of you should know that this command is dangerous. So just you need to write drop table students. What is the object name? Here the object name is what? Students. So you have to write this command. If you execute this, what will happen? Again, it will take a confirmation. You are really interested in that or not? Yes, I am interested, and actually I want to drop the table. You write okay, and then this student table is gone. This MySQL database is having no tables right now because we have dropped the table. So this is all about what? Students DDL, data definition language. It has 4 commands. One is create, another is alter, and alter you have different forms, then you have drop, and then you have something called truncate also. You noted somewhere truncate is also a part of what? DDL. Next, students, we will see the data definition language. Okay,